Hello, everyone. This is Dr. John Tantillo, the marketing doctor, for another edition or volume of Brand Talk, another way to talk. And I'm going to be talking today about Donald Trump and the Democratic brand. So let's start with Donald Trump. First of all, Donald Trump was a Democrat. He started out as a Democrat, and most popular Republicans, namely Ronald Reagan and Donald Trump, started as Democrats, and they evolved. And the famous line is that um, I didn't leave the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party left me. And that's what best describes what I did recently in the 2024 election. I changed from being a Democrat to being a Republican. I didn't do independent because I wanted to have input in Republican primaries. And it was a matter of principle. I never thought I would ever, as I said, become a Republican. But I decided after what the Democratic Party and the Democrats and what Biden did, they in fact pushed me to never ever vote for a Democrat again. It would be very, very hard. Maybe Mark Cuban, maybe, but I don't trust him as far as I can throw him in terms of policy. And he's got some stuff in his background that right now he looks to be a good option, but there are problems with his background and what he has done in his life. Look, if you are a business person and you're in the arena, there are going to be things that you've done that other people don't like what you did and become your enemies. So I hear from Trump antagonists how terrible a person he was in terms of paying. Well, he wasn't the first person, businessman or business professional that did this, nor will he be the last. And you got to remember, you don't know the circumstances. You don't know if the vendor did the job right. You don't know whether or not he came on time, whether or not there were overcharges. You don't know. So you got to be a little bit weary of how other people see Donald Trump, or how they, in fact, uh, criticize him. I'm not saying that Trump is a saint. I'm not saying he's a choir boy, but in business, it's rough and tumble, and you can't grab your pearls and say, "Oh, uh, Trump had a university that failed, or had 15 businesses that failed." Hey, have you ever tried starting a new business? And you know what the failure rate is? Come on, stop. All right. So don't give me that nonsense. As I like to say, poppycock. So with that said, I just want to put the Trump brand in perspective. Uh, First of all, I like to say that I am a blue collar guy. Okay. My father worked, had a fruit and vegetables store. After that went under or was dissolved because of family problems. Uh, he decided to work for Pan American, where he loved it. He loved Pan Am. It was a great airline. It had a great health plan. As a matter of fact, that health plan, along with Medicare, got my mother's cancer treatments that cost over $250,000, paid by Medicare and a supplemental by United Healthcare. So don't tell me about poor working class people not having decent health care. There's a lot to that story about health care, and yes, more can be done, but all I know from my personal experience that my mother was done very, very well by her health care, and my father, God bless their souls, my father and mother. So, but let's take a look at Trump. Trump was a Democrat, which we all were. My father's side of the family, because they owned a fruit and vegetable business, they were the Republicans. My grandfather on my father's side, on my mother's side, loved Franklin Roosevelt, and of course, I am a big admirer of Franklin Roosevelt. And I just think that Franklin Roosevelt did what he had to do. And what people don't realize is how the upper class hated Roosevelt. As a matter of fact, they would refer to uh, Roosevelt's policies as a noun by, or I should say a verb, doing a Roosevelt. So he was not well liked at the time. And I compare Donald Trump to Franklin Roosevelt because basically Roosevelt introduced Social Security, and the geniuses, or I like to call them the keyers, the know-it-alls, they think that Trump is going to touch their Medicare and their Social Security. I got news for you. This if he does that, okay, he will never, and the Republicans do that. The Republicans will never ever get reelected. All right, that would be open season for Republicans. What I can see that happens after we get some consensus is for millionaires, okay? And this is something that could be in fact worked out. If you are worth on your tax returns more than $1 million or 2 million or 3 million, you pick the number. Uh, you should, if the person agrees to it, should not get Social Security. Okay, I mean that would be touching Social Security, and of course, Trump's detractors would go screaming about that. That you see, he did touch Social Security, but um, it's a reasonable approach. Okay, even though you did put in, it would calm the geniuses, or I like to say the know-it-alls, that say, increase the taxes that the millionaires and billionaires pay. Well, the data shows that millionaires and billionaires pay more taxes than gross wise, okay? Percentage wise, you can say whatever you want, but I don't believe in percentage wise. I believe that everybody should pay I don't believe in a graduated income tax. I believe in I believe that you want to set a firm tax rate of 20%, 20%, whether or not you're making $1 million or 30,000, everybody should pay the same. But I'm not going to get into that. What I like to really get into, and basically, I am a very reasonable guy, uh, and I've been told that by my dear friend and colleague, and now uh, owner of Newsmax, Chris Ruddy, is that I see things from the middle. Okay. And um, and I guess after listening to me, you'll see what I mean. But let me stay with Donald Trump and his brand and why I admire him so much. As I basically said to you, I'm a blue collar guy. And I think, even though they say that Bill Clinton was the first blue collar guy, he really wasn't. He really didn't speak uh, blue collar. He spoke more black. He was considered the first black president. Okay. Let's not talk about Obama right now, but he was the closest that the black community had to somebody that was in fact um, spearheading the rights of black people. And so anyway, but uh, Trump is really a blue collar guy. He speaks like them, uh, to the chagrin of a lot of my colleagues and a lot of my college educated friends who forgot where they came from and will say, "Oh, how could anybody say that?" Well, he says it because he says what blue collar people think or are thinking. And that's why he's got the common touch, as evidenced by our friend Bill Maher, who just felt so comfortable with him, with Trump. And there's something that comes, that gets in the way of people liking Trump, and that is all of his detractors who come up with stories upon stories on how bad Trump is. So there is this public persona uh, from the left or from the elites or from PhDs or from journalists, and I would say elitists, that how can you, John, how can you even consider being for Trump? And what that does for me is it's my mission to bring the other side of Trump to those people because of the propaganda, what I call Trump derangement syndrome, and where anything that Trump does is wrong, which quite seriously is terrible. Now, I'll be frank. I don't. I let me say this. I didn't like the policies of Barack Obama, and I think that he could have made things different regarding race relations, where he would kind of um, like instigate, as my parents would say, not about Obama, but that would be how my mother would describe what my sister would do to get me going, instigate the issues, and play the race card. Well, let me tell you, I grew up in the 60s where I had very, very, very few black friends. And I can say now that that's not the case. And that uh, I, and the reason for that wasn't, I worked in a white working class neighborhood. Okay. I didn't meet many Jewish people either. Okay, that came later in life, and now I'm teaching at an Orthodox Jewish community that I can dare say is probably the best institution I've ever worked for. And let me tell you that. But getting back to Trump, Trump is a blue collar guy who speaks to blue collar people. And regardless of whether or not you're black or you're Latino or whatever your uh, ethnic background, and he calls the shots the way he sees them. All right. And, before all of this Trump derangement syndromes, there were so many uh, people that were outwardly for Trump, like Oprah. They were good friends. That's what's so funny. Uh, so anyway, so I don't see Trump as a racist, and I don't see our country as being racist. Are there times when things could be done differently? Absolutely. But for the most part, America is at a place in their history that for minorities, it's the best place to be. And what complicates the situation is the left and how the Democratic Party has been infiltrated with Marxists. And what that means is taking down the American way of life, the American structure, the American institutions, and which is part of Marxism 101, uh, which means what you got to do is destroy the historical foundations, and so that the people don't have anything to refer back to other than the newly installed state. Now, I am not a person that believes in conspiracy theories. I just see what I see. And when you hear Bernie Sanders and you hear AOC preaching, it's about the working class, and it really isn't. It's about elite white, uh, and this is interesting. White liberals hearing how bad the working class have it. And let me just state that uh, there are capitalism, or at least American capitalism, has helped more middle class people and working class people achieve their goals than any other government in the world. All right. So now I will admit that that has changed since the 1970s. And who can be blamed for that? I hate to say it, uh, the um, the elitists that have taken over the Democratic Party. And what I find absolutely incredible is how, let me just take a look here and see how time is going. Um, which the Democratic Party is no longer the working class party. The Republican Party and Donald Trump is the working class party. I don't care what anybody says, but the problem is to convince other people of that. Okay. And when and by the way, the Democratic Party, I just learned this recently. There are three groups of people that are part of make up the Democratic Party. Women, okay, that are unmarried, Black women, and gays. Okay, those three groups. It's not even becoming the party of the young. Male young guys now are moving to Trump. Um, that's just the way that has become, and conservative women are moving to Trump as well. And the Democrats are, in fact, shooting themselves in the foot when one thing is immigration. That, I believe that that will be what the um, uh, 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 racial rights, okay, or what do they call it? I'm losing it. Um, uh, black having black rights and Luther King's um, philosophy. Them, Lyndon Johnson, embracing the plight of the blacks and giving them equal rights in the 60s, and that cemented the uh, the black and minorities to um, the Democratic Party. People forget, and it's funny. I was in I was doing my rehabilitation. Walking, and that's another story. But I mentioned this to kids in their 20s that the Republicans were the ones that blacks were for before 1963, 64. Equal rights. It was the Republicans, and most blacks were Republicans because the Democrats were slave owners. They were part of the Ku Klux Klan. Well, I see this same thing happening with the Democratic Party. So people now are moving to the Republicans because the Republicans are identifying the plight of the working class person. All right. So there's a problem. And you see this in the ridiculousness of siding with, I'm not saying they shouldn't side or with deportees, Trump's deported folks, but deported people that are alleged, even alleged, and that, which and there is, I wouldn't say a majority of the evidence, but there's evidence there, maybe 51% that these people are crime folks taking their side, where people are in fact being raped and murdered. You're on the wrong side of that issue. Okay, Democrats, you're dying on the wrong hill. I would say, you know what my grandfather used to say? He used to say, it's better to say nothing than the wrong thing. Well, I got news for you. It's not smart to go to El Salvador and speak out for this guy who was deported, who is a wife beater, who is alleged, okay, and they say that he didn't have his time in court, which he did twice. It might not be perfect, but I mean, there's enough evidence to show that this guy is no choir boy. And it's just the wrong side of the argument to be on. And when Democrats do that, they're only pushing more of the average voter away from voting for them. So it's the border. And the other thing, very, very bad. There are two other things. The second item is the transgender issue. Now, let me tell you something. I am very, 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 very sensitive to transgender folks. I know a few, my heart goes out to them. And I would dare say that there should be legislation that there should be no discrimination against them. But for them to be involved in women's sports, I think that that is going a bit too far. And when you side with that group, all right, as the Democrats do, you're bad. As I mean, there are a number of different ways of handling it. Number one, have a separate league, okay, for transgenders, or if if they are competing with other men, a special legislation where if they are in fact discriminated against, made fun of, they get some sort of a penalty. Okay. And it could be you're branded for life for making a derogatory comment, and go for sensitivity training on what not to do that again. So that's another thing. And the third thing is getting involved with uh, rearing children, so that children that might not know about their sexual identity, that really is something that has to take place in the home. And it is unfortunate that there may be parents that aren't as understanding, but it's still the parents' responsibility to take care of that. It's not the school that should be worried about that. And so, with those three items alone, the Democrats have a long way to go to get the hearts and minds of most people. And the last thing is this idea of religion. Um, Trump, whether or not you like it or not, has brought back religion or belief in God to the White House, as evidenced by the fact that he was um, almost killed, almost assassinated, and he found that that he believes that um, God has given him purpose. And I couldn't believe it. By the way, if you want to take a look at this new Trump, which I'm going to be writing about, Trump 2.0, in terms of how being shot made him um, more sensitive to the presence of God. And we all go through that from time to time. I mean, I've been through it, and a dear friend got me back to it by bringing me rosary and visiting me and my rehabilitation. I won't mention the person's name because I don't want to embarrass him, but he's a I he's really a player in this business world, and I'm just so happy to have him as a friend or consider him as a friend, that he got me back into appreciating the power of prayer and the fact that I had a number of health issues that my students prayed for me. And then remember, they're Orthodox Jewish people, and they prayed for me. And a lot of my Facebook friends have prayed for me. And as a result, I believe in prayer. And that's also helps cement um, Trump with the majority. And some people say he's not the majority. He only got 49.5 or 6% of the popular vote. But people forget that that's not how we measure uh, uh, the winner of the elections, electoral college. And that way he slam dunked the election. So it's just denial is a river in Egypt for some. What can I tell you? And so what we have to do here is be a little bit understanding of the other side. And uh, I had this friend of mine that kept uh, messengering me and direct messengering me on Instagram about how she hates Trump. And I had enough of it. Now I don't mind if she uh posts things that are anti-Trump. That's her right. She can do that. But to personally and try to antagonize me, I think that that's going a little too far. So anyway, so what the Democrats are going to have to do is they're going to have to lose a few elections. And so in 2028, what the Democrats are going to do is they're going to, and this is based on history, and this is not my idea, this is Dick Morris's idea. History proves that what they will do, as they did with McGovern, is they'll choose a radical like an AOC that just has no appeal. I mean, the smart way to go for the Democrats would be a Mark Cuban, okay, a millionaire to counterbalance Trump. That, by the way, in my humble opinion, Mark Cuban is jealous of Trump, and that's what you got to be careful of when people are criticizing Trump, what are they criticizing? Are they jealous of him? And chances are they're jealous of him. And as I like to say, envy is one of the 9 deadliest sins, and you got to be always very careful not to be envious of other people. And that's what you got to be careful of. Let's see. So I wrapping up here. If the Democrats want to win, they got to get rid of this Marxist wing of the Democratic of the Democrat. They need more moderates, and and by the way, they don't have a young bench at all. The Democrats. So the good news is the Republicans do. And the other thing is that Democrats are not happy people. They're not happy campers. They're always complaining about the system and how it's not working for them, and yada 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 yada. And generally speaking, if you look at people who are not successful, um, for the most part, this might sound a little bit uh, rough, but they're not doing the right things. They're not reading the books by the motivational books uh, by Dale Carnegie, or any book on motivation and how to make it. And I, I'm gonna give an example here. I know a gal who is single, who's a Democrat, and has a doctorate in psychology, and she hasn't gotten the license. So, and she's a Bernie Sanders fan. And my response to her is, why didn't you get your license? Because if you would have gotten your psychology license, you would be good for $150,000, $200,000 a year by a teaching assignment and what you do on the side for therapy. But she doesn't have the license. So what she can now do is complain about how the system stinks, how all these loans she has, but not really consider the issue of what she did not do to complete her certification. And it's that kind of stuff. And then I know another person who doesn't have the credentials, that is soaring like a bird, and she's brilliant, she's qualified, she's wonderful, and she gets depressed because she's afraid of what could happen to people like her. And I constantly reassure her that Trump is the kind of president that rewards people that work hard and will not forget her. Because remember, Trump is a working class president. All right. The Democrats are the elites. They're the PhDs. They're the stockbrokers. They're the ones that move manufacturing overseas. Okay? big business really has transitioned to the Democrats. And their strategy is make sure you give the masses, okay, those important ethnic groups, their their payoffs so that there's no sorts of riots and no sort they're content and we can stay in office over and over again. What Trump is trying to do is make the country work for the working class. And I know people will think I'm crazy for saying this, but that's the way I look at it. And as somebody who is um, looks at history as a hobby, I'm not a historian, but I know enough about history uh, and uh, and what has happened in the world. That's the way I see it. So, with that in mind, I thank you for listening in. I hope I wasn't too boring. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. I also talk about my journey with dealing with above knee amputations and the way you can find me on YouTube, John Tantillo, the marketing doctor. Okay. Um, so this is John Tantillo, the marketing doctor, reminding you to go brand yourself, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and look at my branding and lens column that's seen on Newsmax. That's it, kids. Take care. Be good. Bye bye. I hope you enjoyed my my musings. Bye bye.